Despite the difficulties Black women continue to face as we age, when we uplift each other, we begin to honor Black women who have made great impact in our communities and young Black women who are making a difference. Resistance, resilience, and revolution celebrates unknown sheroes and their contributions to Toronto's marginalized communities, weaving the narratives of their voices, perspectives, and leadership. Each story unfolds through various art forms. My name is Gloria Swain. I am an artist, a curator, photographer, writer, performer, and advocate. I can also add mother, grandmother, and community auntie to this list. My work is always about freedom of expression, about being accepted and included, and showing up for other Black women. As Malcolm X stated, Black women are the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected. As an older Black woman living in a youth obsessed society, I am made to feel that I am no longer of value or important just because of my age and my race. I am often unseen, unheard, and excluded around conversations on police violence, Black mental health, and Black history. I am Black history. As an elder who continues to do the work, being pushed to the side shows such disrespect to the work that I have done and the work I continue to do today. I was born in the southern United States in the mid-50s and lived through the 60s and 70s and early 80s in a racist America before moving to Canada. My work speaks about my experiences with racism in both countries. My activism has always been through my art practice. As a child, I wrote radical poetry about what I endured as a light-skinned Black girl with a huge afro in a racist environment where I really didn't fit in. I expressed myself through writing, art, and performing in front of a mirror. I began writing about Black pain when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed in 1968. While the Black community mourned a great man, I wrote my feelings on paper. I attended a Southern, all-white school in the early 60s, soon after integration was established. But I still experienced racism by being separated from other classmates based on skin color. White kids were seated separate from light-skinned kids who were separated from dark-skinned kids. That was my first introduction to being seen and treated differently. As I grew older, I became more radical about discrimination of the Black community. In the mid-70s, I wrote an essay about unjust treatment of Black folks and won a trip to Washington, D.C. There, I was introduced to the U.S. Senator Robert Byrd, a well-known KKK Grand Wizard. Yep, everyone knew who he was and what he stood for. I refused to shake his hand. I was a teenager then, but I knew what racism and hate looked and felt like. At his funeral in 2010, Joe Biden, President of the United States, spoke at his funeral. Bill and Hillary Clinton and even Barack Obama attended his funeral. I have always believed that white supremacy had a hand in politics in North America and still has a hand in politics. My father left racist Alabama as a young Black man with little education, seeking a better life. He spent his life working for 45 years in the coal mines trying to break generational poverty for his children. But this company took advantage of men like him by promising freedom and housing. He passed away in 2001 from cancer and black lung disease. He never paid off the mortgage to U.S. Steel. And just before my mother passed away in 2003, she finally paid off the mortgage. They never got the opportunity to enjoy their lives and never broke the generational poverty curse because of an unjust racist system that made broken promises and broke their dreams. That's what racism looked like for many poor black families. I remember the conversations around the dinner table about the violent police attack in Selma, Alabama in 1965. And I could hear in my father's voice that he was worried because he had family there. We had relatives in Alabama that he had left behind. In the 70s, I wrote about the injustice against Angela Davis. I wrote about the 1985 bombing of the Black Panthers headquarters, where I still believe the government had a part in the destruction because of the positive impact the Black Panthers was making in the black community. I stood on the front lines in Canada supporting the early Black Lives Matter movement against police brutality. I spent long, cold nights sleeping on cold pavement, inside tents alongside First Nations sister warriors, protesting inhumane conditions on reserves, protesting the lack of concern for First Nations missing and murdered women and children, youth suicides on reserves, and police violence against First Nations people. I have experienced racism in Toronto's hospitals, universities, grocery stores, just walking the streets or riding TTC. But most recently, in Toronto's art spaces. My experiences are expressed in the art that I create. And many spaces do not welcome too many people who look like me. As black women, we are always unwanted, unappreciated, and invisible. Add ageism and to racism, and it begins to impact our creativity. Black women's lives should matter, but many times that isn't the case. Resistance, resilience, revolution is important because it gives a generation of voice to black women who have made an impact to the black community and young black women creating work for and about black women in the community. I am so honored to work with these amazing women, Lillian Allen, Molsa McNally, and Janice Reed. I want to thank Myseum of Toronto for this amazing opportunity to take part in the annual Myseum Intersections Festival for 2022. To Black Artists Network and Dialogue Band, thank you for the use of the venue and for always seeing the talent of the artist and not the age. I also want to thank Neon Center for the Arts and the Ontario Arts Council for the support. Thank you.